Well, good early Sunday morning. This is student forecaster Stephen Boyle for Northeast Weather Center. Well, before we begin, there have been some accusations saying that I am uh, sending this one person. I'm not gonna mention any names. Um, Disrespectful messages through, I don't know what it is, Facebook, YouTube. I don't even know what the hell he's saying I'm sending it through. But anyway, first off, it's your prerogative if you want to believe this person. Secondly, I was not raised that way. Unless you give me a reason to disrespect you, there's no reason for me to disrespect you. I'm not that kind of person. So if this person even knew who I was and how I am, he'd know that I'm just not like that. I don't do that unless you give me a reason to be disrespectful to you. I won't. So that's what I have to say to that. All right. And obviously this person is just BSing around and trying to cause problems. I'm just not gonna really do anything about it. I'm just gonna say, hey, listen, I'm not doing this. That's not my personality. And if you knew who I was and how I am, you'd know I wouldn't be doing that sort of stuff. Um, and if you don't want to believe me, well then again, that's your choice if you don't want to believe me. But moving on to the weather, going away from the drama, because I'm not a big fan of drama either. I like my weather though. Um, Talking about what's going on out in the west right now. There is some weather going on out there. There is some winter storm watches and some blizzard watches going on into these areas. Winter weather advisories as well. So we're keeping an eye out on that, and that is associated with a system that's starting to enter into portions of the Pac Northwest, and it's going to actually kind of come down here, and it's going to create some problems into portions of Colorado. Nothing much going on across most of the Northeast right now. So again, here is that precipitation associated with that system. There is also another system out into the Great Lakes. This is going to kind of work its way in this particular direction. It could bring in a few scattered rain showers into portions of the Northeast, but it's not going to do all that much. Okay, so looking at the current satellite imagery, you can see here is that system that's coming into the Pac Northwest. Here's our system in the Great Lakes. This is going to move through, maybe create a few showers here into the Northeast, but nothing much. So again, this system out here in the Northwest is going to come down here into Colorado. All right, this is what we call a La Junta low because La Junta, Colorado is in here, and basically that's where the storm system is going to start forming. All right, now the question is going to become whether it rides something like this, okay? Now, if what I want you guys to remember actually is that the GFS is actually now starting to take it like this, or even something like this, okay? Which is a major difference from yesterday at this particular time. All right, or it kind of does something like this. It kind of does a dance a little bit. Now, that's a major revelation because yesterday the GFS had the low coming in through here, kind of doing something like this, okay, and now the low is kind of down here and kind of doing something like this, which is a major difference. All right, that's a major trend southward over the past 24 hours. That's only within the past 24 hours. All right, so obviously we're starting to get somewhere. All right, now I'm not going to show you the whole run of the GFS today. Basically, I'm just showing you what the where the different GFS models are in accordance. This is the newest GFS. This is a 0Z run. Alright, and basically you can see our low pressure centered right here. Alright, it's right over Massachusetts. Now, do I think that this is going to start to trend more southward? I do. Alright, and this will, but according to this particular model or this particular run, it would move up something like this. But again, this is again too far north. Alright, and this is from earlier today, and if you notice, it did within the past run, because it had the low somewhere in here. At 0Z, it had the low. It had at 18Z, it had the low pressure right here. So that's still a little bit of a trend southward. Notice how it's slowly progressing southward. All right, it's not a major difference, but it's still a difference. Okay, and again, here's what the Euro showed earlier, and again, that is obviously more to the north because the Euro earlier from 0Z was here. And again, this is where all the different GFS models are clustered from the past 3 runs, and basically you can see it's a general trend southward. That's basically the whole gist of what I'm trying to say. All right, you don't want to look and say, oh, the GFS is showing something totally different than what the Euro is showing, because yesterday, if you were to have looked at the GFS and thought it was right, the low was up here. And that's pretty far to the north. Okay, it had to track something like this. Okay, that's a big difference. Okay, actually, I'll show you. This is the 0Z run today. This is where it had it yesterday. That is at least 400 miles, maybe even more. Maybe we're probably talking close to 500 miles south. So it trended that far south within a 24-hour period. That is a major revelation as far as what's going on. So obviously there is a more trend to the south, and I do think that things will also trend a little slower. All right. So that's my general gist of what I'm trying to show you. I'm not going to generally show you what the GFS solution is showing, but I'm just trying to show you that the trend is further to the south. Because what I want to show you guys is what the Euro is putting out there. All right. And the Euro is pretty nasty as far as what it's showing. All right. Again, it's still almost a week away, but what I want you guys to note is that the Euro has been consistent. All right. And when the Euro shows something very consistently for runs and runs in a row, it's not a good thing. Okay. It did this with Sandy. It did this with the October snowstorm. It did this with the blizzard that we had this year. It did it with all of the major systems that we have that affect us. Okay, it's just how the Euro runs. When the Euro is onto something and the Euro consistently shows something, you can almost 9 out of 10 times bet your money that that's probably what's going to end up happening. All right. Could the Euro be wrong? It could. And I'm not saying that this is definitely going to happen and that this is etched in stone. All right. But what I'm trying to say is that I do realize what the GFS is showing. All right. And I'm not totally off to that particular solution. But what I'm also trying to say is that the Euro has been consistent here, all right? And we also have to note that the GFS is starting to trend a little bit further to the south, all right? That is also something that we have to note, all right? So our storm system is starting to form out here. There is absolutely no doubt that these folks in the Midwest are going to be talking about a major severe weather outbreak. This is going to be some serious stuff here. Folks if you know anybody who lives in Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, particularly eastern Kansas, Texas, Louisiana, anywhere in the South, please make sure that you warn them about this and how severe that this event is going to be, because this is going to definitely make some headlines here. All right, we are going to be talking about a pretty major squall line as well with this. Now, what's going to end up happening is we're going to really have two formations of lows, okay? We're going to end up seeing one low that's going to kind of come up like this, but we're going to have some weakening pressures down into this part of the storm as well. All right, we're also getting some colder air draining in from Canada. All right, now there is also a little bit of an influence for these folks down in here from the south. So therefore, these folks would be away from that influence from Canada. Therefore, these folks, basically, if I were to draw a line, if you live south of here, basically you can pretty much say you're in line for at least rain, if not some thunderstorms, and maybe especially down in here for potential severe weather. All right, but if you live north of this particular line, you are in probably pretty good shape for possibly talking about at least a little bit of snow. All right, whether it's a slushy inch or a major 12 inches or more, you're going to talk at least a little bit. Okay, now we start seeing the storm approaching us on Friday evening. All right, now remember, these temperatures in here, because of the flow coming in from Canada, these temperatures are pretty cool. All right, here comes the storm. All right, and we're really now getting in a pretty nasty formation of a secondary system down here in Virginia. And this is really what's going to be driving in some of this cooler air. And this low here is really going to start becoming stationary, which is not good because we have a major flow coming in from Canada at this particular point, while this low is starting to deepen. Not a good situation. Very bad. Okay, and this is at 1 in the morning. This is 7 in the morning. This is an absolute nightmare for people who live in interior sections of the Northeast. This is an absolute, this is literally very wet snow. We're talking about tree-breaking snows into these sections, all right? And even some of the coastal areas wouldn't even be surprised, especially in the Boston area. There could be a few inches of slushy, wet snow that fall with this. The Cape could see a possible coating at most of a little bit of snow with this. There will be a pretty major influx of air, and also here's our low pressure system. Folks who are on the northern edge of this, on the northwestern side of this, have a very high shot at seeing dynamic cooling. All right. Now here is what happens next Saturday afternoon. This moves out. Precipitation is starting to lighten up. If we do see any precipitation, it would be in the form of drizzle, which everything is already basically, the damage has already been done. So basically, we're all over with. The storm is basically over. All right. Now, what is the situation as far as snow totals? All right, that the Euro is showing. Well, let's just look. All right, and again, the Euro is continuing to go higher with its snowfalls, which is not good at all. Here is a snowfall, and again, like I said, this really worries me. We have areas north and west of Boston getting in at least 6 inches with up to 12 inches of snow. We have parts of the Cape and the islands getting into, again, this is probably a little bit more down in here, a little bit more overdone, but these areas absolutely not. These areas are probably really well, all right? However, these folks in here, okay, it's probably a little bit overdone, all right? I don't think New Jersey is going to be talking about a lot of snowfall with this. All right, most of this is going to be north and west of New Jersey. All right, because I know I had some questions about that yesterday, saying, "Oh, this is a lot of the snow is away from, or how it's showing a code in for New Jersey." I don't think New Jersey is going to get into much of this unless you live in extreme northwestern New Jersey. All right, there could be a slushy coat into a few inches in here. All right. But for the most part, most of the precip is going to be back in here and even up in here as well. All right. nasty situation. This has got a very similar look to it, and the Euro is doing the same exact thing as it was doing with the October snowstorm. And I cannot reinforce this enough, all right? It doesn't matter the time of the year, all right? And it doesn't matter the temperatures before the storm. The temperatures before the October snowstorm, as I mentioned yesterday, were into the 60s and 70s in the Northeast, okay? And these same areas picked up at least 6 inches of snow. Some areas picked up to 15 inches of snow, all right? Keep that in mind. Not only that, the sun angle in October is still pretty strong, all right? We're not in the winter months, all right? And is April known for some pretty interesting snowstorms? Yes, it is. It is known for some pretty interesting snowstorms, all right? And like I said, just because we have 70 to some areas in the mid-Atlantic could be reaching near 80 degrees on Monday and Tuesday, it doesn't mean that we cannot see a snowstorm. And finally, what I'm going to show you guys today is the European ensembles. And this is even worse than what the actual Euro model is showing. All right, so we're going to start off at hour 144. Here is our storm down here into West Virginia. All right, these folks in here getting a pretty nasty severe weather event. All right, now remember we're still getting cooler air kind of flowing in from Canada. All right, so therefore we're still getting in chilly air. All right, now we're starting to get snow spreading into some of these areas, particularly these areas. Okay, we're starting to get snow spreading in. All right, moving on to the next hour. Okay, here is the heaviest of the snow, and you can start seeing some of these lower pressures down in here in portions of Virginia. All right, so our pressures are starting to low out in here, are starting to get lower. We have precip spreading into the Northeast and New England. All right, now moving on to hour 156. This is when things really start getting interesting. Here is our secondary low pressure system, almost as strong as this low pressure system. Our winds are intense, all right? You can see a strong northwesterly wind flowing into southern New England, so which means this is a strong wind coming out of Canada, okay? Very heavy precip, all right? This is a recipe for major damage, all right? This is a major recipe. You can notice these very strong winds into southern New England. This would be very heavy snow. I wouldn't even doubt that there's some thunder with this because we have very warm conditions down in here. Some of these warm conditions are going to be trying to flow into some of these bands that form in here, and therefore you're going to get convection. Convection leads to higher cloud tops. Higher cloud tops can lead to more thunderstorm production. Will they be strong storms? Absolutely not. Our strong storms would be mainly centered towards these areas. But remember, an interesting fact to note here is that with the October snowstorm, it was a very similar situation as we are seeing right here. Okay, and let me tell you something. That storm had a lot, and I mean a lot of thunder snow with it. It was absolutely incredible. Here's what it's looking like. Now, you can see at hour 162, here's our low pressure system. So basically, it took a track like this. We're seeing heavy precip into interior sections of the Northeast. Still some extremely heavy snow. This low pressure here is starting to weaken a little bit. This is starting to deepen. All right, we've got some really intense stuff going on in here. Okay, windy still. All right, and I also want you to notice the northwesterly wind component. That is very important for these folks into these sections, the interior sections of the Northeast. Dynamic cooling will be a very, very big factor with this, just as it was with the October snowstorm. All right, and then finally by hour 168, this thing moves out and it's over with. All right, now looking at temperatures in the upper levels. All right. notice. Now, some people will beg to differ with me and say, "Oh, these are too warm." Well, remember, during the in April, your temperatures at this level shouldn't be that cold. All right, this is not that high up in the atmosphere. This is only maybe at best 1,000 feet. All right, these are pretty chilly conditions for this time of the year. All right, this is not very cold, or excuse me, this is not very warm. This is pretty chilly for this time of the year. You should probably be a little bit warmer than this. So, arguing the point that you should see colder temperatures at the 850 millibar level is definitely not something that you want to look at, especially when you have a very intense system as we are dealing with this one. All right, now. And again, I want you to know that the Euro ensembles were much, much different than this yesterday. They were actually showing something like, and the day before, they were showing a similar solution to what the GFS is showing. This is definitely something that is not, in my opinion, shouldn't be ignored, because there is definitely some significant impacts that can be going on here. Notice how we actually have this cooler air dropping a little bit farther to the south. Notice how we now get these cooler temperatures going as far south as southeastern Mass. Okay, this is pretty intense stuff here. All right, so we're getting this cool air that's just continuing to flow in. Okay, as this low pressure system is really starting to get its act together. Notice how this northern extent of the storm is just staying cold. Okay. And that's something I really want you guys to notice. All right, we move on to hour 156. It does move a tad bit more to the north. Now, I want you to note that especially these folks in here who are in the green, you'll still be seeing snow. All right, and even these folks in here, you'll probably still be seeing some snow. All right, you'll most likely be seeing snow. No doubt in my mind about that. Okay. This is hour 162, and again, if you live into these sections, don't worry. All right, this is still cold. This is still pretty cold for this time of the year. All right, this is definitely supportive of major snows. All right, definitely supportive, and with the dynamic cooling that would be taking place, don't even worry. All right, this is definitely, if the Euro is on to something and comes to fruition, there would be no doubt that this would be a snow event. So, what is my general thoughts here on this particular system? All right, this is what I'm thinking at this particular point, and yes, this would extend farther to the north as well. We would see this darker blue extend up into Maine, up into here, I would say. All right, I do think that these areas are in fair game for a major snowstorm. Even this pink line may need to extend a little bit further to the south, just because of how things have been trending. We also have severe weather that will most likely be happening, particularly in Virginia, and this actually may even need to trend a little bit further to the south as well, where this area of severe weather is going to be, because things are really starting to trend a little bit further to the south, which is not good news for people who are in New England, because this definitely means the possibilities of more snow. So basically, if you live into these regions, I would say you have a possible shot at seeing the possibility of over 6 inches. Some of these areas may get close to 15 inches of snow, and actually, to be honest with you, some of these areas may reach close to 18 inches of snow. This is some of your very higher elevations will see some pretty intense snow with this. We'll be probably seeing ratios with this particular system anywhere between 5 to 9, so a 5 to 9 snow ratio. And again, in your higher elevations, it'll probably be closer to a 10 to 1 snow ratio, particularly into these areas, all right, especially your higher elevations. But for the most part, most people will be seeing about a 5 to 7 to 1 ratio. again, some areas will see 9, and 10, and maybe even some areas in your highest peaks, maybe close to 15. But again, not a very fluffy snow. Absolutely not. This is going to be very wet, possibly tree breaking if this ends up happening. And there's still a little bit of an uncertainty into this region, but confidence is increasing that a possible winter storm could actually impact the region, while 70-degree weather affected us just a few days prior. It's very, very, very weird. It doesn't normally happen, but this sort of weather actually does happen in Colorado. Colorado, especially Denver, can see at times, they can see a very significant snowstorm, and then all of a sudden they can get 70 to 80-degree weather, and it could be the other way around as well. And this is some of the weather that we're going to be talking about into this region. However, I don't think 80s will make it into the north, or particularly into southern New England. I do think 80 degrees is possible in New Jersey down through portions of Virginia. But for the most part, I think 70 to 75 degrees will be the general temperature here on Tuesday for folks into southern New England, northern New England into the 60s. We get a front that comes in Wednesday or Thursday. This will definitely set the stage for the storm that's going to be coming in here on Friday and Saturday, and we get the storm starting on Friday night, going through Saturday, and we'll be ending up with probably something that looks like this. And again, it's still far out, but confidence is starting to increase on this. So I will give you updates throughout I will give you guys updates tomorrow, but or actually later on today, I'll give you another update. This is actually for yesterday, but it's actually being taken on Sunday the 7th. But I'll do another one later on for updates with the newest Euro models and the GFS and everything. But for right now, that's what it's looking like, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back later on. Take care, everyone.